Welcome to the Smarter Leadership Podcast, where we explore the power of leadership, from overcoming challenges to shaping cultures and building a lasting legacy. Through inspiring stories and insights from our guests, we'll share transformative lessons to help you thrive in today's interconnected world. I'm Tucci Voe. Join us for conversations that will inspire thought and action. Freda Duplan is the chairperson of Zenith Bank and Fan Milk Ghana. Freda is a trailblazing leader with nearly 3 decades of experience at Nestle, where she made history as the first African female market head and the first female and first Ghanaian managing director for Nestle Ghana Limited. She later served as managing director of Nestle Pakistan and briefly led Nestle Business Services in Manila, Philippines. A trained computer scientist, she has held different roles including IT, sales, supply chain, and general management. Freda is a founding member of the Executive Women Network, championing leadership and growth for women across industries. Freda, you are a woman of many firsts. Your career has seen you take the first role in so many different capacities. I know that you were the first female head of sales for Nestle Ghana. You you ended up being the first female MD for Nestle Ghana and the first Ghanaian for Nestle Ghana. Yes. And other firsts also followed in your career, and I really want to get to all of them. But I want to start with your experience at Nestle Ghana. How did you get there, and how did you rise to the top for Nestle Ghana?
Okay. So I started with Nestle after we relocated from the US. So we being myself, my husband, and our 2 sons, who are now gentlemen. Mm-hmm. So when we relocated from the US, the idea was for me to work in formal employment for a while and then start up something of my own. Mm. So through a friend who had then a consultancy with Nestle, I then joined that friend as the consultant, IT consultant.
Okay.
for Nestle. And I was doing more of the software part. The friend was then handling more the hardware part. Okay. So we teamed up, and that's how basically I got into Nestle.
I never knew that.
Yes. So I started my first year at Nestle was really as a computer consultant, helping Nestle in Ghana to automate somehow. This was automate using apps,
back then. And this is in when was this?
This was 1991.
Okay.
So it was more using apps that could be bought off the shelf, but just adapted with parameters for use. Okay. It was much later on that we then moved onto the Nestle platform, the Nestle software. So we started this, but 1 year into that, the Nestle decided it was time to move onto the Nestle legacy systems.
Right. And
this then meant that we had to implement the Nestle systems that had been developed by Nestle. And to do things properly, it then meant that they had to have an in-house team. Okay. And this was when I was approached if I had any interest in joining Nestle as a full-time employee, as IT manager.
Wow.
So really, I normally count my number of years at Nestle from when I was full-time employee rather than the 1 year consultancy. So I start from 1992 then. Okay. And that's how come I joined Nestle, and I joined Nestle as IT manager.
You joined as IT manager.
Yes.
So how do you move from IT to sales? So I know you're a computer scientist.
Yes, that's it.
So you really, that was your background, your profession. You started in IT. How does an IT person move to sales? And I ask that, because I've met so many people in the technical space, IT, and they're not very sales oriented. When I say people oriented, not in a bad sense, but they tend to be kind of introverts. They like to stay behind their screens, whatever that screen is. If it's a laptop, computer, phone, they're not really people who want to go out there and be front facing and selling things. How did you do that?
So with the implementation of the Nestle systems, it meant I had to understand the various functions, let's put it that way. And my main expertise in IT basically was systems design.
Okay.
So I was used to talking to users of the system to find out what they really need to make the system work for them. So I got exposed to the different functions of the company.
Okay.
Getting exposed to the different functions of the company, I got some basic understanding of how all the dots connect with manufacturing company, with sales, with marketing, and all of that.
Okay.
So that was my first introduction into Nestle as an organization and how Nestle as an organization really works.
So moving to sales, was it your idea? Did you express a desire? Or?
Yes, because as far back as then, Nestle still had the process of career development, career progression, performance evaluation, and all of that. So, as you know, during my performance appraisal at the end of the first year especially, things had gone really well.
Okay.
In my career progression, it was then, what do you aspire to be, both medium term and long term? By this time, I'd had a good appreciation of the business side of things. So I expressed that I would like to move at some point in time, I didn't know when, into the business side of things. And it was accepted on a light note that, it's possible, but it all depends on your performance. So I'd say 3-4 years down the road, I kept that same ambition. That's what I wanted. And one of the very different things that I negotiated for, let's put it that way, when I was offered the job of IT manager, was not to report into finance, but to report to the MD.
Okay.
Now, I think things have changed a lot now, but then most IT functions, departments, and so on were under finance.
Yes.
And I felt that being under finance, you just become another section under finance. And that was granted. It was granted, I found out later, with a lot of hassle with our head office Switzerland.
Because
of
discussions.
Yes, because we were going away from the norm.
Okay.
And so, but it worked out great. And because of that, I got a lot of visibility.
Okay.
And, and it would have been also negative, I would say. It would have been negative if it hadn't gone well.
If it had gone the other way,
exactly.
yes.
But of course, I did my best and worked hard with the team, and we did a good job of, implementing all the systems. But at the end of it all, it made me a much more holistic, I'd say, career person for the company, rather than just IT focused, because I really understood at a very, very high level, but I did understand
how the business works, how all the different
functions
and areas come together.
And so, moving to sales, it was quite obvious that I needed business exposure.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't just move from one day in IT into the business just like that.
Right.
So there was the discussion back then to expose me elsewhere, not in the same market.
Okay.
And that is what then landed me in South Africa.
Okay.
So then I was transferred after 5 years as IT manager. I was transferred to South Africa for sales and marketing exposure. So I moved to South Africa with our 2 sons.
Okay.
My husband came along to make sure we settled, and as usual,
he came back and
forth. You know the story.
Yep.
So it was in South Africa that I got my really first business
sales exposure.
Yeah. Okay. And it was more sales focused than marketing focused, more so because of my insistence.
Right.
Why is that? Initially, I was kind of exposed to both.
Okay.
And I realized that to be a good marketer, I had to be good at long-term dreaming, but I'm one of those people, I need to see the results of what I'm doing, exactly.
Okay.
So tactical marketing, yes, I'm okay with. Long-term dreaming, I struggled with.
I think I'm a long-term dreamer.
Yes, you are. You are very, very much so. Very, very much so. So anyway, it was quite clear that I would be better suited, really, in sales than in marketing.
Okay.
So then I was in South Africa for just about 2 years. I was supposed to be there for 3 years.
Right.
But then how it goes in big groups and multinationals and so on, there was a move of the national sales manager then, who was a Nigerian in Ghana, to go back to Nigeria.
Okay.
So then I had to be brought back.
Nice.
So I came back a year earlier and
took on the national sales manager role for Nestle.
Yes, for Nestle. So I worked with him for about 6 months, and then he went to Ghana, and then I took over.
Back to Nigeria.
Yes. Okay. So this is how I went from
IT to sales. So in between the sales and the MD role, somewhere along the line, I joined Nestle. I think it was 2003. Before that, similarly to you, I had worked with an agency, and Nestle was my client. I was with the communication agency, MMRS Ogilvy Ghana. And then Nestle asked me to join them. So I didn't know we had that similarity as well in our stories. And when I came in, I think you were one of the first people I saw in the work. So I walked up the stairs first day. You were standing at the top of the stairs, and then, some people were talking about you. I don't know if I've ever told you this.
No, please do.
Some people were talking about you, and it was clear the kind of respect they had for you. They said, this is Freda Duplan, she's very tough. She's very, that's the first word I heard about you.
Great.
And then I got to know you. I said, okay, so I understand what they were trying to say when they said she's tough, but this lady's also very sympathetic. You had time for people, so it was like quite a contrast. And what I later learned to understand when they said tough was that you know how to hold your own. So for me, walking into a multinational, the first female leader I saw was not a female leader. I didn't see you as a female. I saw you as a leader. You were on a par with the other leaders who happened to be men. And it's why I talk so much about the importance of role modeling, because if I'd seen anything different, it may have impacted the way I view leadership when it comes to male-female leadership. I don't see that there is any such a thing. I see leadership when you embodied that. And when I'll talk a little bit, more about that as we go along, but, that this is a first impression, and it's something that was not just impression because it lasted. And so just tell us a little bit then about from your sales role to the MD role.
Okay, all right. So I'll try to make it short.
Okay.
But anyway, just before we go on to that, up the top of the stairs where you saw me, my office was just right there, actually. Yeah. But I used to come out of my office a lot because I had sales admin right next to me as well, and so on. And it was more working with my team rather than just sitting in an office, door closed, and the team feeling like, you were not accessible. So if you remember, I was always moving around. I would rather walk down to somebody's office than pick up a phone to call, because I felt that, it made discussions a little bit easier because not all the discussions were easy discussions. So anyway, so from sales to MD, the path was very interesting. Did sales for about 5 years. Fantastic exposure, doing different things, improving the size of the business as well as the whole structure, moving from selling to just wholesalers to creating the distributorship network and selling through distributors rather than us as a company just trying to sell to any and everybody who walks in and all of that. So it was really exciting. A lot of changes, a lot of new things. A lot worked very well, some not so well, but that's part of, being successful anyway.
Yeah.
And so with that, of course, always with career discussions, it was like, so what next after sales? Now, by this time, I had clearly said that I would like to be the MD for Nestle Ghana one day. So now my long-term objective or vision had moved from moving into the business, because now I'm in the business, is what exactly in the business. So it was, to be MD for Nestle Ghana one day. And so the feedback from my manager then, now by this time I had changed MDs or managers then, my line managers. But the feedback was, yes, it's possible, you have the potential, but as usual, it all depends on your own performance, which is great. So it was like, what next? Now, during this period, about 3-4 years into that, Nestle then decided to globally change all the systems. Right. This is when the project Globe was started. And part of the foundation for Globe was to standardize all data. Okay. What did that mean? You have, let's say, Milo or Nido being sold the same size, so we take 400 gram, being sold in 200 countries. Oh, no. Well, yeah, maybe. Or 100 countries or 50 countries, doesn't matter. But everybody's describing it differently. So when it comes to consolidation as a group, to see, okay, what's our sales like as a group, it was a bit difficult. And for standardization, that was the basic, foundation and platform needed for this change of system, software, best practices, processes, the works.
Like a full enterprise system.
Full enterprise system. Therefore, we needed to really standardize across the organization. So in every market, those days we didn't have markets even. It was countries,
we had countries.
Just all countries. So in every country, it was like, okay, who will be the champion for that? So at that time, that was the first time I was actually asked. Every other project, I raised my hand. You
had gone for it.
Yes. But that was the first project I was asked, can you please lead this project? With your IT background, now your business background, you're better placed to understand what standardization across the business meant. Especially with technical, it was easier. But with the commercial side, it was not so easy. So I added that role to my core role of sales. Of course, fast forward, if I'm to spend too much time, we'll be here all day. But fast forward, it got to time for us to implement the SAP system in our region, in our sub-region. And Ghana was the first.
I remember that.
Yes, okay. Yeah. So by this time, I had to move to be manager for the project, so global manager, full-time. So I moved to do that and to lead the team in Ghana, to be the first for the region to go live successfully. And we did go live successfully. So, and then there was a hypercare period thereafter and so on. But then after that, of course, the job content really dropped. So it was like, okay, what next? But by this time, there had been a lot of discussions. So the next one was, okay, where do we need help? And at this time then, if you remember, the end-to-ends had changed. The processes has changed. So then there was a lot of struggle with sales releasing or relinquishing some of their control to supply chain. Because at this time, customer service and distribution had to move to supply chain. Prior to that, that was part of the sales function. But there was a bit of, struggle. So I was, of course, once again, better placed to lead that, this time for the region.
Right.
So this is when then I was given the role of customer service and distribution for the region.
Central West Africa region.
So then I moved to the regional office, did that a couple of years as well. And during that time, it was like, okay, so after this, because this is only for a while, there was always that discussion of what next.
And you still had as your goal MD for Nestlé Ghana?
Still had as my goal MD for Nestlé Ghana. No, but also by this time, I had been told, well, you can't be MD. We see the potential, we see the capabilities and everything, but maybe not for Ghana.
Because
It could be.
at the time that you did not have country managers who were from the actual country.
That's right. So it was always, it'll be another country, but, So I said, okay, fine. But then the next role after the customer service and distribution came as a total surprise, because I didn't even know that there was anything such as that within the organization, the group as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And this was as the head of NBS, Nestle Business Services, which was a shared service center set up to support all the countries where Nestle is from Ghana. Okay, back office operations more so. So in finance, HR, sales,
supply chain, across board. Yeah.
And when that offer came, I was like, what is a shared service center? So by this time it was Etienne, who was the market head then. So he says, why don't you read up a bit on the intranet and then come back and let's talk. So anyway, I did that. I thought it was exciting. As you can see by now, I love doing different things, right?
Yes.
So I just,
Etienne Bennett, and he liked people trying different things as well.
He did
so that was also...
Yes, so it was great. So I did move on. Okay, before this time, or by this time, we had only within the group, we just had 2 shared service centers. We had Manila, which was the first one, the one in Manila. Philippines, supporting all of Asia, Oceania, and North America.
Okay.
And then we had Brazil, LATAM as well. Okay, supporting more the Southern American part. Okay. Ukraine was open just about the same time as Ghana. Okay, and then after that we had Egypt and so many others. But by this time now, Ghana, it was clear was going to be, because there was a toss-up before whether it was going to be in Ghana, in Egypt, or South Africa. And eventually it was settled to be in Ghana. So we started off first with the finance, part of the finance team. I was given a few talents from the finance team to help me. And then we, in bringing in the payroll function for HR, for employee data, I was also given some talent from Nigeria to do that, and so on. So basically, to start off, and we started in the Central and West Africa office on top of Woolworth. I don't know if you remember
I remember.
Okay. And we were pulling
quite
people,
a journey.
Yes, it has.
Pulling people from everywhere across
the region in different disciplines. And we were all new to all of this. Luckily, being a group that supports people to succeed, they basically allowed me and my direct reports to travel and spend a month in the Philippines for us to really understand and see how a shared service center works and what it requires and all of that, including my HR, and all of that. So we went. It was a very good exposure, good learnings, and I'm very thankful for that kind of support, because it wasn't taking 2 people or 1 person going to come back and then try and disseminate the information, down, but taking all
team,
of my direct reports and going and spending that amount of time was fantastic. Anyway, fast forward, we set up the shared service, run very well. And today we have I believe over 200, almost 300 employees, and they're covering a whole lot for the group. Anyway, so did that.
And when you say today, you mean today?
Today.
Yeah, you see, when you've worked with Nestle, it stays
It's
part of you.
so
Even when you're gone, you're still there.
I know, tell me about it. Anyway, so after setting that up and having that running, of course, the next was always still there. Okay.
What next?
What next was always there. But by this time, we had some movements within the shared service centers.
Okay.
And Manila became open.
Right.
So my direct line manager, who was then in Switzerland, reached out to me and said, look, how about you heading the biggest of the shared service centers, which is Manila? Now, now, if you remember, there is Manila or Philippines, Brazil, LATAM, in terms of size.
Yes.
Then Ukraine, Ghana, and then Egypt, and then India, and so on. So it was like, and I was like, really? Me? Because there are a couple more shared services that were bigger than Ghana. But it's like, no, I want you to go ahead. And I said, okay. You have to wait. I have to talk to my husband. Because there comes another expatriation, right?
And this one is even further. It keeps getting further away. And further away.
And what I missed was after sales, I had been transferred to Guinea.
Another thing we haven't covered.
We haven't covered, okay? So I had been transferred to Guinea. It was from Guinea then that I came back to do the Globe project, okay? So anyway, so then that's another expatriation coming up. By this time, this is the third expatriation, right? So, of course, I talked to Eddie and stuff, and Eddie was happy, but he was a bit quiet. And so I'm like, honey, what's up, and he says, yes, I'm happy for the opportunity for you, moving to the biggest. But Philippines is far.
So far. Mm-hmm.
And I said, don't worry. Already we'll be discussing what I need to support from the group to succeed. And of course, as I've always done, is to say, well, my husband can't physically move with me because of his business as well. So you have to support me with him coming over every 4 to 6 weeks. And apart from South Africa, where that was my first exposure, so I didn't have that much experience in terms of being an expat. Subsequently, I was able to negotiate that.
Knew how to what to ask for, how to negotiate better. Yeah.
That's right. So anyway, did that. So I, when Philippines came up, got the okay from my husband, went back and said okay, and during that time also, my line manager had to get okay from the zone. So by this time, what I found out also was I had become the talent for the zone and not for a function anymore, because I had moved functions so much that I didn't belong to anybody. So now I was part of the zone talent. So the zone had to give approval for me to be moved to Philippines. And of course, finding out later, they gave the approval, but to say, okay, but whenever we need Freda, it doesn't matter how long she's been in Philippines, you have to release her.
Okay.
Now, this was for the MD role.
Right.
Not necessarily in Ghana.
Right. But they knew that this was somewhere.
Yes, whenever that became available, the understanding was I will be released.
Okay.
So I went to Philippines, fantastic place, fantastic people to
Beautiful
work
people,
with.
yeah.
You know what it's like in Asia. So anyway,
good work ethic, yeah.
went, had fun, and it wasn't a year. It was like 8 months after I had been transferred to Philippines. We had a meeting for the shared service centers, because our line managers were at the center. We used to go to the center for meetings about 3-4 times a year. So we had a meeting for the end of the year.
And the center is Vevey, the head office in Switzerland. For those who don't know.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm having a chat with you, and I think we are back in Nestle. Okay. So
we are in spirit.
I know, really. So anyway, I went as usual to give catch-up updates to the zone in terms of how I was doing and so on. So, in the process of doing that, the zone manager says, well, I have very good feedback on how you're doing, and it seems like you're enjoying, you're well settled, your markets are very happy with you, because I remember I was supporting Asia and North America. Very happy with you, but, and I'm like, what's the but? We have to move you. And I said, for what? He says, what you've always wanted. So by this time, like, what I've always wanted. He says, you've forgotten? I said, well, I've moved so
many times. Yeah.
I said, so he said, as MD for, how we say country manager, MD for Nestle Ghana. So my first reaction was, really?
You were shocked.
Yes, I'm like, I thought really you said it wasn't going to be Ghana. He said, yes, but the reasons why we normally don't like locals to head their own markets in their own countries,
jurisdiction,
is because of the social pressures. You get very good people, very good talents, who buckle under a lot of social pressure, because that's their environment. But then he said, you've proven to us, we've had a lot of discussion about this in the zone, and you've proven to us that you stay focused, you stay professional, disciplined, and don't buckle to social pressures. You've proven when you're in sales, you've proven when you set up the shared service center from scratch, and so on. So we have no hesitation in giving you Ghana. I said, are you sure that it's not because we have a problem in Ghana? And he said, no, we do not have a problem in Ghana. So when am I expected to go? He says, by the end of Q1. Now, that would have put me exactly 1 year
in Manila.
And so this is how it all worked out. And
wonderful. Yeah. This is the journey to Nestle Ghana. And obviously it didn't end there, but it was so important. And I'm so glad to hear the details of it. I tell people when I get an opportunity or I speak on a platform, I've also been privileged, and I say privileged, to hold many first roles, but I've also been able to do that because those who have done theirs before me have done it so well. And it's difficult, when you're put in a position to be the first to do something, the first female maybe, and the first African, you really feel you have to prove yourself. And actually you do, because if you don't do a good job, the next person's not going to get the opportunity. So every opportunity I have, although you and I didn't work closely together, we had completely different functions, different places, but you played that wonderful role, and you've had that impact, and on so many women in the group, within Central West Africa. I can name quite a few who worked with you or who, followed in your footsteps and who looked up to you. So I really want to give you your flowers while I can.
Thank you. Thank you.
So after Nestle Ghana, you ended up becoming the first market head in another country, female. So maybe just tell us a little bit about that, and then...
So Pakistan.
Yes. Did you ever think you'd end up working in Pakistan?
No, I didn't. The interesting thing about Pakistan and going to Pakistan is that by the time I was MD for Ghana, I had just a little over 5 years to reach retirement age 60. So my thinking was that I would finish, of course, in Nestle Ghana. After a couple of years of being the MD in Nestle Ghana, zone head by this time was Wang Ling. Another strong female. And I didn't tell you also the NBS head, the line manager who sent me to Philippines was also female.
Okay.
But I had reached out through Zone HR to find out if I am willing to go beyond 60.
Okay.
And I said, well, look, it all depends on what I'm doing and all of that at that time. But today, all things being equal, I don't mind going beyond 60, but it all depends. So we left it at that. So when the knock came for me to take up the role of market head for Pakistan, the first thing I asked was, and actually Wan Ling called me herself. So the first thing I asked her was, I thought I was going to get to 60 first. And she said, no, nobody said that. You did say that you were willing to go beyond 60.
You're open.
So I said, okay, when am I needed for this role? I said, like yesterday. Okay, let's continue discussion. So, of course, we discussed a bit about Pakistan, why they need to change, the market head, and why me, and all of that. So after all of that discussion, I said to her, okay, I have to talk to my husband about this and then, come back to you. And so she said, when is that? I said, I'll come back to you tomorrow. She said, no, I want you to come back to me tonight. And I'm like,
wow.
Tonight? She said, yes. Now, little did I know that at that time, there was a conference, there was an HR conference, which she was at in China.
Okay.
So with the time difference, it was okay for me to come back to her tonight because it would be early the next day. So anyway, I said, okay, but it will be late. She said, it doesn't matter. I said, okay, fine. And then before hanging up, she said, just call your husband and you guys, and plus yourself, go home early. have a good dinner
and then have your chat about it.
And come back. And you can both call us together. I said, okay, fine. Anyway, so we had the chat and everything. And Eddie's like, well, same distance kind of as maybe even shorter than Philippines. So it's fine.
Go for it.
Go for it and everything. And so, as always, I normally don't go into details of, okay, so what position? You know, we women are not very good at that, I must say. I mean, today, if I'm to advise another female, the advice would be slightly different. I'll add up a few more things that I always took for granted. I may be lucky also that the group always made sure that they did look
you were
after.
well taken care
exactly.
of. And,
but some companies are not like that. So it's important. We know that the men are very focused on that, and we are not. It's one of our gaps. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I didn't know too much in terms of whether grade level, about what it all meant. It was just a job aspect. So we did call Wang Ling and confirm. Went through a few details such as my usual support of my husband being able to come, things like that. And then by this time also we were, as MD, I had a company provided accommodation. And so now we had to move back to our own place. And by this time, our previous house we had sold, we were building a new one. And I had a bit of a gap there. And the group was like, it's okay, let your husband stay where you are now until you finish. Whenever you finish.
Wonderful, great support.
Yes, great support. Whenever you finish, we will move you and your husband, whether you're there or not, into the new house. And that's exactly what happened. And it was great. And I was concerned. I said, so what's going to happen to my replacement? Where is she going to live? Well, I said, that's not your problem. We will sort it out. So you let your husband stay there, and all of that. So that's how Pakistan came about.
Right.
And we went to Pakistan. Work, fantastic. And I knew quite a bit. I must say that with Globe, I got to know a bit about the work ethics of markets like Philippines, Pakistan, India, and so on, because most of the best practices
were coming from these
markets,
Asian markets.
These Asian markets. Okay. So in terms of their work ethic and, employee support for managers and really going after big challenges, including whether renovation of processes, products, or whatever, they were always in the forefront. So it was always very exciting working with them. So I was looking forward to that, and they didn't let me down. It was fantastic. The only downside of Pakistan is the social bit, We all know what it's like, for female.
A bit more strict, not so liberal.
Not so liberal. And also for Pakistan, they have a past history of security issues. At the time that I was there, there were no issues. And prior to that, my predecessor also didn't have any security issues. However, they did not want to take anything for granted. And all companies, I found out when I was there, did that. So everything had to be security cleared. I want to go and do my petty money, they have to go and security clear the place. I want to, have dinner here, it has to be security cleared before I go. Always moving in two vehicles. A little bit
restrictive.
With security, and so, the first couple of months, it seemed a bit nice, but afterwards it was like a pain.
You're locked in.
And the difficult part was, Eddie would come, for example, and he couldn't really move around much. And so it was like he'd come, but then he'd most of the time be stuck
in the house
until I come back from work, and stuff like that, and all of that. So after a while being like 6 to 7 months, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure. I want to extend beyond 60 here. So I did inform the group through the zone. It was a bit tough of a discussion. They were willing to change the market. If it's a market I didn't want to, I said, look, I think I'd like to go home, do different things. Also be there for my family a bit, because my mother and father are
getting
quite
older.
elderly. Yes, exactly. And so on. And I think it's time also for me to be there a bit more for my husband and all of that. So
and it was a great ride.
Yes, it was a great ride, fantastic.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, it was accepted, but on condition that I'll stay on as a consultant for 2 years.
Okay.
And support the markets if they needed and all of that.
Nice. Okay.
And so even though I formally retired, I had a 2-year consulting contract after that.
It kind of full circle. You started as a consultant, and then you left, and then you left as a consultant.
So that was
it's a really great journey with Nestle, you know, that you've had and that you've shared with us. And you mentioned your husband quite a bit along the way. I want to, you know, move completely off topic now and just talk about this relationship of yours, because it's something which over the years, every time you mention him, you have a big smile, and you guys have done the thing, you know, the distance, the back and forth. But when you're seen together, you both, you know, look so happy, have a wonderful friendship, and I quite frankly have a lot of fun. You know, we know him to be a wonderful dancer. He's got great moves. He's got a great personality. So clearly this relationship has been, you know, of tremendous support to you on your journey, and I'd just like you to just maybe reflect a little bit on that.
Okay. You're very right in terms of his support. He's always the first one to remind me, you're the first, so be careful. You're the first, so if you block, you close the door, you've closed the door for everyone. I'll give you a good example. When I was offered the Nestle Ghana MD role, we were in our own house in Lashibi, right? Very comfortable and everything. So when I came back, it was like I was showed the accommodation I was going to be given. And I said to my line manager then, why must I move to another? Can't I just stay where I am and give me an allowance or something to replay whatever you decide it would be, so I don't have to move? And he was like, okay, I have to go back to Vivi for this. I'm like, okay. So he went back, he went back to the group, came back and said, look, for so many reasons, it's better you're in the company premises. Of course, there's security, everything, generator, but they were doing that anyway at Lashibi, I mean, providing those ancillary services for me. So, and he says, and also for Nestle, especially in Ghana, they own that property. It's been set up such that if you have to entertain for the company, it's easier, and so on, and so many other things. So the group are like, no. If you don't want it, then that's it. That's the end, and so on. So I went back again to Eddie and said, I said, well, this is this. And he said, by this time also, if you remember, every time I'm being expatriated, he stays behind. So I'm not able to move everything. I move some things, but I leave a lot of things at home. Now, of course, when I'm coming back, I also, do buy some,
different places,
different things, and so on. So it also meant then that we would have to combine. I'd gone to see this property, and I would have to combine whatever we have in our own house with what is coming from Philippines. And the compound of the house was very big, huge, but the house itself was a bit
to contain
small.
all your worldly belongings.
I know, tell me about it.
I know how it is.
And then I was thinking, okay, and then what do we do with this house? We rented, what do we do? And so I went back to it and I said, well, look, this is the feedback. We can't. And so the first thing he says is, relax. You are the first one. If you are not careful and you don't handle this well, it means the next local who gets into a position where accommodation can be given, you've closed that door. So don't. And so I said, and what are we? He said, it doesn't matter what we're going to do. We'll manage it. We'll figure it out somehow. The group has always supported you. So don't worry. We will figure it out somehow. Just accept it. We will move when it's time for us to move. We will figure out what we do with this house and so on. So cut a long story short, yes, we did move. We finally ended up actually selling that house because we couldn't rent it, but it was easier to sell it.
Right.
So we did, and we built a house now where we
Okay.
are again to move into. So, I mean, he's always the one to kind of
Some words of wisdom,
them
some
and also make me,
hold hands.
focus,
Yeah.
and say, it's
Look
okay.
at what is important.
Yes,
and,
let's look at what's important. Let's go. We'll figure it out. We'll work it out. The same with the kids, when I was being moved and the kids, schooling and everything, same. And I really wouldn't have succeeded as I did without his support, honestly.
So a lot of women will be watching because, we're in International Women's Month. You have a lot of female leaders and aspiring, leaders who are female, and they will ask the question, will you move up faster if you're single? Will you have more freedom to, expand your career if you're not married? So maybe you can touch on this from your own experience for those who are dying to ask you that question.
From my experience, no, you wouldn't move up any faster if you were single. But I think at the end of the day, we also have a big role to play as women. It's a matter of how you communicate and what you discuss with your husband. If you remember, I did say my long-term objective was to be MD for Nestlé Ghana. Now, with the discussions, I knew I'd have to go outside of Ghana quite a few times because it was part of the discussion that I have to be exposed to different cultures, different teams, different, and so on. So, and if you remember also with the system that we had, you had to say whether you were functionally or geographically mobile. A couple of times I would change it to not being geographically mobile just so I can get a bit of stability, stay in Ghana for a bit, and then change it back. But
it never worked.
It never did work, but it wasn't too bad. But each time I had to say I'm geographically mobile. Functionally mobile was not an issue.
Right.
But geographically mobile, I would discuss it with him that I am taking the geographically mobile, because that's where you get expatriated.
Exactly.
Geographically mobile box. So anytime, the offer could come. And I have no way of knowing where, which, and so on. And normally he'd say, okay, yes, go ahead. And when it gets there, we'll cross that bridge. But sometimes we don't do that discussion. We don't have those discussions. We don't,
a lot of women don't give themselves the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think the other side is also the who you marry, because
very true.
Yeah. So yes, you can be single or you can be married, but if you're married with someone who doesn't support your dream, your goals, your ambitions, then that's where maybe the problems will lie. So it's really about choosing your life partner wisely. Wisely.
And it's not about how much money they have in their pockets today. It is more about their character. It is more about if they see you as a partner. It is more about if they are willing to dream big with you.
Thank you for mentioning that, especially the money part.
That's right.
Because I think people are too focused now on material things.
Yes.
They're not even giving themselves an opportunity to, be open, to be loved. They're looking for anyone who will, be able to buy them the things to live the lifestyle they think they want to live, and ruin, the chances at the partnership. Yeah.
So, yes, as you rightly said, we're still very close, maybe even closer than we were when we first got married, but still really very close. So we've been married for over 40 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'll do it the same way all over again if I had to. So that's my advice to the younger me, is not to look for a different kind of husband, the same one.
Beautiful. So we've clearly talked about what a supportive role a strong partner can play, but you still didn't quite tell me the secret. I told you I see you out there, we've seen you dancing together, smiling at each other, and I want to know the secret.
Well, the secret is, he was my childhood sweetheart. Same with me, yes. So we go back a long ways.
That's why.
Yes,
That's why.
so-
You know, it's nice to see. You know, relationships, we can't take them for granted. And when you see one that, you know, looks strong, they may have, you know, gone through challenges, and there may have been, you know, tough times. But when you can see a couple enjoying each other, honestly, it's something that people, you know, people are happy to, it brings joy to people's faces, and people can aspire to that and know that relationships can be good.
Yes,
So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. And we have to continue working on our relationships, both of us.
Yes.
Don't take it for granted that you can get up in the morning and be in your 90 all day long without, you know,
Just
making an effort to look good, and vice versa. So
and
there's so many
speak to each other and
talk.
yeah,
It doesn't
be
matter
friends.
what it is. Be friends.
Yeah, go out from time to time.
Date nights,
Yeah.
not to be missed.
Yeah.
We still have date nights. Okay.
It's definitely
important.
something that I take from you, because I go out with my husband when we are invited out, but you know, sometimes we have to be more intentional about going out, because we're homebodies, we enjoy it, and that's great, but sometimes that, you know, making that effort, it's felt by both sides, and it helps to grow. So many more years of that.
Thank you.
Another area that I've seen supports play a big role in your life in different ways has been the intentional approach you've taken to trying to bring up other women, supporting women. Can you talk a bit about that? I know you are one of the 6 founders of the Executive Women Network. Maybe what brought you together to do that?
So what brought us together was us 6, a lot of the time maybe 3 or 4, but sometimes all 6 of us meeting at different industry functions.
Right.
A lot of them were like AGI or
Association of Ghana Industries,
Ghana Employees Association, and so on functions. And it was actually Mady who brought up the idea that
Mady was then the MD of Unilever.
That look, we keep meeting but we meet at these functions and that's it. We don't meet to get together, to get to know each other, to support each other, and so on. So she actually encouraged the first meeting outside of the industry meetings of us. And when we met and we got talking, we all realized that it's necessary for us as women to support one another and to be intentional by really, initially we didn't even talk about having a big organization. It was more about us being intentional about us meeting outside of regular industry meetings, industry functions and things like that, and just being there for each other. More or less feeling like you have a safe place, sounding board and all of that. And it was when we talked more and more about it, we felt then that, look, it will be a good thing for us to get something going where we can support not only women in C-suites today, but those in the pipeline, the future, so the next level, and possibly the level after that, to, help them, come up the ladder a bit more smoothly, maybe than we had. They will have their own struggles and their own challenges, but at least if we can share transparently, if we can encourage, if we can motivate them, if we can, guide, coach, whatever, it would, help them and make it a little easier. And if they get that support, hopefully they also lend the same or even better support to the next generation and so on. And we always used to laugh about how the men have it a lot easily because they have a lot more time to socialize. We don't. We are always rushing back either for the home. If it's not your husband or kids, it's your mother, father, something. There's always something for a woman. It doesn't matter whether they're married or not, whether they have kids or not. There's always that something that is always pulling their time and pulling them. And so that's how EWN started. And very happy to say it's really grown into a very good organization with a good strength in terms of number of about over 250 members now.
Women across industries, across hierarchy
yes,
and so on.
so on.
Yeah, really
And,
finding that support.
yes, and industries, including corporates, and I'm talking of corporates and entrepreneurs, as well.
A good mix.
A very good mix.
So when and you mentioned that it was not just for C-suite, but the next level of leaders and possibly the ones after. And I think it's a good point to maybe share some of the lessons you've learned, maybe some that could have arisen from challenges, but what would you advise the next generation of leaders based on everything you've experienced, maybe not just from your own journey, but even from sharing with others? What are some things that you think aspiring leaders should think about? And
okay. So, look, we all know, yes, okay, working hard, that's non-negotiable, okay, but also working smarter. Some people, work hard, but really not so smart. So sometimes it's not always the most hardworking, employee who gets picked for a new role or for a promotion into a much bigger role. But it's showing that you have the capability, you have the potential to be able to do so. I think when we talked also, I've mentioned a few projects that I raised my hands up for.
Right.
It's for us not to be shy to do that. I mean, really, most organizations, and I would say 9 out of 10 organizations, will make sure that you do succeed, especially when you've raised your hand up and it's something that's new. You will have all the support needed.
Because that's bold enough in the first place.
That's right, yes, to succeed.
Yeah.
So do raise your hands. I mean, sometimes it could be also being moved into a function that you know nothing about, like I have been. You have to be willing to learn. So you have to be willing to learn. It doesn't mean that you become the most experienced or the technical person or the subject matter expert for that function. No, but to understand the basics of that function. So even if it's something out of your normal competence, raise your hand. You will be supported. And as a leader, you really, as much as you have to be firm, you have to be strict, you have to stay balanced. And the way you balance that also is by being able to listen to people, being, empathetic. You have to, we all have different problems, different issues, be it at home, be it at work. And so learn to listen to your team. Learn to understand where they're coming from. Sometimes just listening alone is good enough. And they feel relieved and even do better and work much harder for you as the leader. So I always say to people, and I think most of the time, at least I've come to realize that most people always describe me as, yes, she's tough, she works hard, you have to be ready to work hard, but she's fair. And that's because I'm not always just one-sided, just, the organization, but also about you, the person. You, the person, your social situation at that moment in time, you, the person, any challenges that you're having, what support is needed, not only at home, but even at work. And today we are all in a much better place for those kinds of things because in the past there wasn't anything like working from home, having flexi hours, and all of that. If I look at the things that I'm able to do just sitting at home and sending, my driver and doing Momo payments and doing this and, and all of that, we are all better placed to succeed today if we use all the tools that are available for us to succeed, especially as women. Because as women, our duties are many. That's just the way it is. And just because you're a woman, you should not use that as an excuse as a leader. When you're a leader, you're a leader. It doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. You are a leader. So all the other things that, we come with,
manage them.
Find a way to manage them. If you need support, ask for that support, but be clear the kind of support you need.
But if you want to move, be ready to put your hand up, put the work in.
And do the best that you can. and carry your family along.
And today you've mentioned you're retired, but really you're still very busy. You're sitting on a number of boards, and this is an important function, I mean, for leaders to play, because without strong governance, it's not just the institutions that suffer, but it's countries, it's economies as a whole. So maybe just share a little bit, what you're doing today and how these board roles also have a huge impact in the way that we work.
So yes, I am on a number of boards, and all the boards from different industries. And I think there's only one now that you'll say I have experience in, and the rest not. So I'm the board chair, of course, for Zenith Bank. I had no banking experience, but okay, it's fine. I'm the board chair for Fan Milk. So that's where FMCG
you have your fast-moving consumer goods background.
And then DTRT, which is an apparel manufacturing company, where they're making a lot of sportswear, underwear, garments in general, really, to exports to the US. They are employing almost 5,000 and more employees. Really making a huge difference because most of their employees, I'd say 80% of their employees, are non-skilled, so they train them. They spend about 6 months training them, and then so that's really giving a lot of employment to the very lowest level in Ghana, which is very nice to see, actually. And then Zen Petroleum, which is also a petroleum company, owned locally by a local person, but doing wonderfully well. They are currently the number 4. So after your big players, they are really the first locally owned oil marketing company.
Great.
So, and then my baby EWN. So although I'm a founder, I'm also on the board of EWN. So basically those are the main board roles that keep me busy, and then
allows you to put your corporate experience and everything. Learned about business management and governance to bear.
That's right. Yes. And I still do a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring. My calendar is full with that, and it brings me a lot of joy to do that, because it's really truly supporting and giving back, and particularly supporting female leaders and leaders to be to succeed. So
Freda, thank you so much. And I think everyone will be delighted to hear your story, and this month in particular, all the women that are tuned in, I know they'll have drawn so much inspiration from it. I'm so grateful for your time and for sharing so much with us today.
Thank you, Tushi, and it's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.